Hello again. I am here with my sister, Emily Guy Birkin. She does not use a hyphen.
I am here with my sister, Tracie Guy Decker. And yes, she does use a hyphen. And together we are doing Lightbringers, where we illuminate the deeper meaning of the crime-solving devil TV show. And yes, we're overthinking it.
We are. We're overthinking it. So it is time for us to talk about, what is it, 9 and 10? Is that right?
10 and 11.
10 and 11. I don't know why I can't keep track of the numbers, but I know the names. Pops and Saint Lucifer are the two episodes we're talking about today. So yeah. And it's really interesting because as I was editing our previous episodes, I realized like several times I was like, yeah, Lucifer's a jerk. Like in a couple of episodes, I was like, he's really kind of a jerk. But I think in Pops and Saint Lucifer, still a little bit of a jerk, but much less so. Like we're starting to see him actually, in Saint Lucifer in particular. Well, no, at the end of Pops actually, but we're starting to see him actually, be less of a jerk, a little bit less self-centered, a little bit. I mean, a little bit.
He still has a journey.
He's still caught up in his own head and his own ego, but I feel like these two episodes together, we start to see, I mean, and in the second one in Saint Lucifer, like this self-conscious, like trying on of altruism, which is sort of interesting. And I guess we can get into it in a minute, but yeah, that was one thing that as I've been editing our previous episodes, I realized I have said multiple times, he's kind of a dick. So.
Well, I do want to say that I think, well, I know for me, I struggle sometimes when there is a point of view character, and this is partially just because of the way that I'm built. I take people at their word. And some of what that means is point of view character. I start with the benefit of the doubt as like, clearly they're good because they're the protagonist. So I struggle sometimes with unreliable narrators to realize that they're unreliable because I am very much like what you see is what you get. And then when it comes to things like television, if you have a good looking protagonist, that double whammy has me like, you can do anything. And I think I've mentioned before that it wasn't until rewatching X-Files in my 30s that I realized how completely toxic Mulder was.
Yeah.
And it was a combination of like that protagonist halo effect that just happens to me because of the way that I'm built, and then the fact that humana just that kind of deletes whatever brain cells I have left.
That's funny.
So I can understand why, like, upon this rewatch, you're like, wow, he's really being a jerk, because we are looking at it rather than just as like, I want to watch pretty people and be entertained. We're actually, kind of digging into it a little bit more.
Yeah. So all right, so let's dig into the first one, to Pops. So this is the story of the restaurateur who's been poisoned. And there's a lot of, this is an opportunity now for the show to dig into so-called daddy issues. That's what Chloe calls them, that Lucifer has because there's a father-son dynamic in the show. And that was actually sort of interesting because we've sort of heard up to this point, he's referred to God as his dad, and, kind of just what seems kind of crazy, I think, from Chloe's perspective, like delusional. Even in the episode with the priest walks into a bar with Father Frank, there was definitely sort of this anger at God, but it still felt in the kind of, metaphysical kind of way of anger at God. And by having a father-son dynamic in this episode, it brought it down to a more human level of a literal father, that I at least don't think that I had really fully wrapped my arms around in the earlier episodes, talking about God as Lucifer's father.
So yes, I think there is also having the parallel of this is the first time we meet Chloe's mother,
Right.
So we
Right.
see another parent-child dynamic there. And it's a difficult one. And for reasons where like I'm entirely on Chloe's side. Because it does seem like Penelope Decker would be a very difficult mother to have.
Yeah.
Although that is something that becomes more nuanced as the series goes on. You know, she's not just an overbearing stage mother. There is more to her than that.
But we don't see it in this episode.
We do not see it in this episode. And it's also the same way where we've talked a little bit about how it's pretty easy to manipulate Lucifer. Like it's so easy for Penelope to charm him. And that's I was listening to an interview with Fiona Hill, who was I can't remember her exact title, but she's the British woman who was a member of the White House staff under the former guy. I'm not going to say his name. And one of the things she was talking about was how Putin understood how easy it was to manipulate the former guy, because basically if you praise him, he likes you. And so I was thinking of that a little bit of, how easy it is to manipulate Lucifer. Not that I feel like I have to make it clear, like Lucifer, the devil, is nothing like the former guy. Like I would not want to insult Lucifer by suggesting that.
No.
So like I just was thinking about that, about how it's interesting that Lucifer is good at being a detective, considering how literal he is and how easy it is to manipulate him. But even with that, he still has a way of kind of cutting through the BS to get to stuff on these cases. Like there's a reason why Chloe likes working with him. And it's not just because he's pretty.
Yeah. So there was one scene that, like, speaking of being literal, like this is a problem of mine in interpreting literature. Sometimes I miss the subtext. The final scene, like in the final scene in Pops, well, not the final, but the sort of climax when the restaurant is on fire, which by the way seemed to happen like that, like flashover was like instantaneous. They get out with a jacket or something over Chloe's head and he's carrying her. What?
I have no idea. Like she says, do you have any ideas? And the next thing you know, you see him carrying
her out
with the jacket over her head.
And he gets burned on his arm, which he remarks, like, the devil got burned by fire. What's this world coming to?
Isn't it ironic? Don't you think?
Yes. Thank you, Alanis. But what, I mean, we've established that he's vulnerable. We don't yet know, because we don't discover till the next episode that it's because of her presence that he's vulnerable. And the smoke was bad enough that she needed a jacket over her head. But it didn't affect him. But he did get burned. Like, what? What am I missing?
No idea what that was supposed to be. Okay, similarly, it took me multiple rewatches to understand what happened at the end when she falls asleep on him and he goes, "Oh God." It took me multiple rewatches to realize, oh, it's suggesting that he's the son that God wants him to be right now. And I'm like, part of my problem, I think, is that not having sex with someone who's drunk seems real minor.
It's a low bar.
A low bar.
It's really low. That's like, although okay, let's bring it back. Like some of the things that his father have said that we shouldn't do, like don't put a stumbling block in front of the blind, like don't oppress the widow and the orphan, like all seem like pretty low bar.
Okay, that's fair.
But are repeated over and over again in the text. So
like, was that the constant
maybe he actually
problem?
does have a fairly low bar.
Okay, that's reasonable.
I'm going to Gehenna. I know. I know.
Would you like to explain what Gehenna is for those who don't know?
Yeah, right. Sorry. It's hell, but it's not the Christian hell. It's like it's more like Christian purgatory.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah.
And we believe you can only be there for 12 earthly months, which is why we say Kaddish for 11 months, because no one wants to suggest that their parents required the full amounts of cleansing that is possible. Yeah. But actually this show suggests that time works differently in the celestial realms than it does on Earth. So 12 earthly months could be who knows how long. In Gehenna.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a total aside.
Total aside.
Yes, not taking advantage of a drunken person does not seem like a really like saintly thing, despite the next episode.
Yeah. So,
and actually, let's talk about this. This is the next episode because he can't lie. He doesn't lie. He can. He doesn't. But when she wakes up and she's like, "Oh no, did we?" And he says, "We did. Did we ever?"
He said, "Did we ever?"
We did. We made. I think we made Rosemary's Baby, and then he lets her in on. He tells her the truth immediately. But, I don't know. I guess that no lying rule is like fuzzy when you're playing a joke on someone. I don't know.
Well, because that's not the first time he's done that to her. Because in the very first episode, when she wakes up from being shot,
she's right.
Like, how long was I out? He's like, it's been 3 years.
Right. You're right.
But he immediately like makes it clear, like, I'm just pulling your leg. Yeah. So
interesting.
Yeah.
But that also that moment when he like puts on the American accent and says, it's hot as hell in this 5-star, whatever it is.
Too hot in this 5-star hellhole.
Exactly. Thank you. Too hot in this 5-star hell. That is so charming. I mean, it is so charming. He does that. And she's like, I do that sometimes when I'm pet.
Well, it's charming seeing her flustered.
Right. Because she's been so rigid.
Yes. Yeah. And so like, and it makes sense that the way the episode ends, where she says, I can be vulnerable around you. Like you see that. And she, it's very clear she doesn't let anyone see that of her. And which is, it's understandable. Now, I mean, presumably she let Dan see that when their marriage wasn't on the rocks. But as of right now in her life, she's got no one she can do that with.
Yeah. Which also makes sense why when she felt hurt, she went to him.
Exactly. Well, and of course she's hurt. I do want to, so I've mentioned how I love Malcolm as a bad guy. When he's talking about what they do to you in hell. So this is something where I've seen people saying like, okay, this doesn't make sense, blah, blah, blah. There's, they say that like, your guilt sends you to hell, but clearly Malcolm Graham does not feel guilty about anything he's done. Like that's not why he went to hell. But there are times when you see, when they're on the couple of occasions when you see hell, which we haven't at this point, they say the doors are open, but there are some doors that are chained shut. And it's more than one. So it's not just the goddess. And so I think that makes pretty clear that there are the normal people who are basically good human beings who feel guilty and they go to hell.
Typical.
And then there's like the Hitler types, who
the sociopaths and psychopaths.
The sociopaths who feel no guilt. And so instead of a hell loop being whatever it is he feels guilty about, his hell loop is using what he loves against him, like starving him, keeping him away from other people, keeping him isolated. So I really appreciate that. And like, as I've said, I love this actor, like just having a ball with this character. And when he goes to shoot Lucifer, I was thinking about the fact that he's hesitating, which Vanessa Dunlear does not. But she doesn't know Lucifer. is a celestial. So it makes more sense why she doesn't hesitate. And so like being in on this and knowing you're killing the literal devil, like that's going to take a little something to get your screw your courage to the sticking place. There we go.
You know, it's interesting. You mentioned Vanessa too. Like she killed her husband with a single gunshot to the chest. Lucifer got 3, right? Like, I don't know what to do with that, but I do think, you know, it's interesting because they made a point, you know, it was a single gunshot to the chest. And they made a point of bang, bang, bang. And then you could see the 3 separate bullet holes in his shirt and jacket. Yeah.
I wonder if it's that could be understood as a indication of panic.
Maybe, or maybe,
I mean, people downstairs.
Yeah.
You know?
And she didn't go there with the intention of killing Lucifer, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like it was a decision she made when he kind of uncovered the truth or
Argentina, no extradition there.
Right. Right. Nazis.
That's where Nazis go.
Yeah. 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 So maybe, you know, that whereas Tim was a premeditated. And so one and done.
Poor Tim and poor Kyle.
Yeah, poor Kyle.
I felt so bad for poor Kyle. Particularly, like, I find it a little hard to watch the scene where he's singing.
To all the rich ladies.
Yes. Even though the moment when Chloe goes, and he's singing.
She goes, no, she says, and he's breaking into song. Even better. Right. Even better.
And like she says it like into her cup, like, oh God, people know I came with him. Like that's hilarious. But it's painful to watch him singing, even though everyone's enjoying themselves except for Kyle. And of course, Kyle's not. This poor guy, he lost the love of his life.
Yeah.
So that's whoo. That and the take the shirt off my back, much as I really appreciate getting a chance to see naked Lucifer, I have so much secondhand embarrassment.
Yeah.
Although he's not embarrassed at all.
Not even a little.
Like, and
when she says, you're not getting in my car like that.
Like that.
Okay, so we'll meet at mine.
And she said, well, that was the other time, like, and he's naked.
Of course he is.
Of course he is.
Yeah. And the showrunners like very conveniently placed like something in the pawn shop.
Yes.
Sticking straight up. Oh, they're 12. They're 12-year-old boys.
Well, you know, aren't we all?
Where I am.
Yeah. So like, yeah. My co-author was someone asked him for the book that I have coming out. Someone asked him, was like, there are a lot of dick jokes, and his response was like, yeah, and Emily wrote like 95% of them. And it's true. So yeah. So the other thing that I want to make sure we talk about is Maze and all of her relationships in these 2 episodes.
Yeah.
First of all, Maze and Trixie. It's just so perfect.
Well, this is the seed for what actually becomes a really important relationship for both of them.
Yeah.
In the long term.
And it was really cool how touched Maze was when she's like, I came looking for Lucifer, but I couldn't find him. So I made a new friend. And Maze is like, I am someone's friend.
Yeah. And Leslie Ann Brandt played that so well, like the surprise and the kind of the being touched. Like, I think that she really conveyed that with just her face, and body language, in ways that like, I knew exactly what happened as she heard the word friend. I think Leslie Ann Brandt really pulled that one off.
Yeah. Well, and then the my name's Mazikeen, but you can call me Maze. And when Chloe says, thank you, Maze, she's like, I didn't say you could. Like, I love that. Yeah. So like, that is one of my favorite moments in the episode, in both of these episodes. And particularly like she pours them each, I don't know, it's bourbon or scotch. She's like,
Yeah.
is this Shirley Temple?
She puts a cherry in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even just the way they talk, like
Yeah.
which one of them wants you to look like an aging drag queen? I guess my grandma.
I guess my grandma.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the fact that Maze recognizes, like, I did make a friend, but I probably should have a friend who is an adult as well. And she goes to like, let's be friends with
Linda.
And I the way Linda responds to that is lovely as well. And then the scene in Saint Lucifer between Amenadiel and Maze when he's like, I'm fun, as he's putting
the napkin in his collar.
And he's like, okay, never mind. And she's like, no, you're not fun. And he's like, the goat thing.
Yeah.
Like that entire his face.
Yeah.
Like he's so enjoying it. It's just like, oh, I got something good. And then the wink, which I usually hate winking, but that is like perfect.
I tell you what, DB Woodside, you may wink at me whenever you like. Just saying. I'm here for the wink.
It was delicious. Yes. So yeah, I mean, like, and that's these two episodes kind of are the first times that Maze is branching out and is forming new relationships on her own, and they all end up being very important to her throughout. And I really, really appreciate how they all work out here. And I think that's part of the importance of, once we get towards the end of her and Lucifer being able to like recognize their friendship, is because she has friendships with others.
Yeah. I'm going to come back. So the close of this episode actually is a big reveal that I imagine the writers were like aiming at from the pilot, even, where we confirm, and Lucifer confirms for himself that it is the presence of Chloe that makes him physically vulnerable. So I think it's really interesting that it's come here. I mean, it took us 11 episodes to get there. That's to your point from earlier episodes, like, way to go. Way to go, team, because it's the kind of thing that I imagine you would want to reveal more quickly than 11 episodes. So, but it took this time actually to build it up so that we thought he was vulnerable, like it was a new normal for him. And then
because it's been since episode 4, I think. That's when Manly Whatnots, when she shoots him.
Yeah.
So that we know of it. And it was in that episode that where she saw his scars and he said, don't, please. And that was, we saw him emotionally vulnerable for the first time.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, I wanted to make sure that we
this writing team.
Yeah.
So good.
So good.
Joe and LD, we love you. So yeah, I feel like they did a great job of slowing that reveal, because it does get to that, like the shipping, the Decker Star, it does get to that, and there is, I'm sure, a lot of pressure, like from the studio, or the network rather than the studio, like from fans and stuff, to like get to the good stuff. And they're like, no, it's going to be slow and you'll like it better that way. So yeah, I agree that's really lovely how they did that. And I wonder, like, he holds his hand and he was going to say something, then he sees that he is bleeding, and like he changes what he was going to say.
Yeah.
And I wish I knew what he was going to say.
Yeah. All right. Last thing. maybe last thing.
Mhm.
Dan, seeing Dan handcuffed to that pole
Mhm.
just for me was like, holy shit, Dan, throughout the 6 seasons of this television show, like he has some traumatic shit happen to him,
Really does.
like really traumatic.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, his nickname is Detective Douche. Like he's sort of like in my memory, he's like sort of this goofball, like well-meaning goofball who keeps screwing it up. But now that I'm rewatching it and paying closer attention, like it's not just that. Like he actually has been through some really, really hard stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, being kidnapped by Malcolm, like in the first season,
Yeah.
like that's
And particularly like with how high the stakes are, like, the one of the things that I really appreciated is like there's that awful dinner scene that's like lovely awful, like it's perfect awkward. And Dan takes Junior for his statements, and specifically like, I need to get out of here. And then he
right,
says to Lucifer, I wanted one reason to stick up for you,
right,
just one.
right.
And then the next time you see Dan, he's confronting Malcolm, and you're like, oh shit, he's gonna be like,
Do it.
let's do it. But he says to Malcolm, like, he's dangerous, he shouldn't be allowed to continue doing what he's doing, but I still am not going to let you kill him.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I feel like that does speak to the core of decency.
Mm-hmm.
He's got whatever within him that makes him okay with taking shortcuts, which is not who Chloe is at all.
Right.
um and I wonder if that's part of what made them not work as a couple,
Mm.
because once we get to actual Charlotte, she was also okay with taking shortcuts, although she had a core of decency as well. um but not only like he stood up to Malcolm and then like figured out a way to get out, and the first thing he did was run to warn Lucifer.
Yeah.
And like just that's heroic,
Yeah.
for as much awful stuff as he's done, and for every reason that Chloe has to be pissed at him. That really was, he did try to do the right thing at every turn at this point. Like
Which is what, I mean, much, much later, Lucifer says about him. You always try to do the right thing. I can count on it.
Yeah. Well, and that was even in terms of Palmetto, like he shot Malcolm to protect Chloe.
Right.
He then gaslit Chloe to
Right.
protect himself, which is not the right thing.
Not cool.
Not cool.
Bro.
Yeah, that ain't cool, man. So, but that's why I think he's such a compelling character. There's like he's willing to cut corners, but he's also like truly decent at his core.
He's deeply flawed, but he
Yes.
wants to do the right thing. And
Yes.
if that doesn't describe most of us, I don't know what does.
Yeah.
Wow. I think we overthunk it.
You think we overthunk it enough?
Yeah. I think we did. Any final pet peeves or thoughts?
Chloe not cutting corners when he breaks into Naomi's apartment and pops, and she's like, all right, let's just search quickly, and they end up taking Naomi in for a statement. I'm like, is any of this admissible? But the fluffy thing is when he hears the couple on the other side of the the wall having sex. She's like, what if you ever had a problem with that? And the woman goes, oh God. And she's like, that.
Right.
He's ruining everything I like.
Which is really interesting that they did that very intentionally, because then they end the episode with him saying, oh God.
Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Well done again. Writers of Lucifer. Well done.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, my final parting thought is the scene from the outside of the car when Maze and Amenadiel are having sex, and then the wings unfurl and like break the glass. That's super hot.
Well, because it's because like when you're seeing this the first time, you're like, well, clearly someone's getting it on, but who? What someone's? I can't possibly think who this would be because it never occurred to you that it would be Maze and Amenadiel. And then you see that. Like, for one thing, excellent visual storytelling because they made it clear without showing anybody's face
or body parts
or body parts or anything. Well, other than wings
and hands.
and hands. Oh, yes, and hands. But also just like, yeah. That and Tom Jones is the soundtrack. That's just weird and funny.
All right.
Yes.
With that, I will say it's not unusual to be loved by anyone.